Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
From her rich and fertile valleys to the shores of her icy seas, from her fields and farms and shellfish beds and her many nurseries, for the finest of her flavor, for the freshest by far, choose the things Alaskans bring to the market where you are. Products that we're proud to call our own, and it's all Alaska grown.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. On yesterday's satellite imagery, we had lots of cloudiness streaming northward here, right into the North Gulf Coast and inland. Some thunderstorm activity popping up there from the Koyukuk Valley on out towards Selawik, and some clouds over the southeast coast out to the west. We had a low pressure area, kind of a weakening front right through here, and the main low back out there to the west. And that brought some pretty good winds out over the western Aleutians, southern Bering Sea yesterday. That shifted eastward today and is pulling more or less right across the Pribilof Island areas there. And clouds along the southwest coast of the Alaska Peninsula there. A little bit of light rain occurring over the inland areas and showers, mostly just cloudy skies, and the rainfall amount's not all that impressive today out there. I guess the main rain area is still off the coast here, and then lots of moisture, heavy rain in across the North Gulf Coast today, anywhere from 1 to 2 inches falling here along the coast there, and that moisture layer deep enough and moving northward there brought pretty good rainfall to the Copper River Basin as well, where anywhere from 1/3 to 1/2 an inch fell, and even upwards of 2/3 of an inch there on the southern slopes of the Alaska Range, and then much lighter amounts up to the north in the Tanana Valley. Maybe a few showers over the White Mountains, but again, looks like some showers popping up there west of Fairbanks, or from about Tanana out to the northwest. Sunshine broke out over the southern southeast coast. That first band moved inland, the next one here approaching the coast. It had a pretty nice afternoon, mostly dry with the showers ending this morning across the Panhandle. On the chart today, westerly winds with this low as it pulled eastward here, anywhere from 30 to 50 miles per hour in gusts from Adak right into the eastern Aleutians. Lighter winds, slighter gradient here over the, or weaker gradient for the Alaska Peninsula, and areas of rain or light rain, drizzle, and fog here from the Alaska Peninsula up along the southwest coast. More light showery conditions over the inland areas. And then here's the frontal boundary there that brought all the rain into the North Gulf Coast today. And again, that on up into the Copper River Basin right to the mountains, and kind of cutting off here on the lee side of the mountain range, but moisture extending back to the northwest, right into the Seward Peninsula, more showery through here. And clouds, scattered showers over the Yukon Delta there, but not much in the way of any significant rainfall amounts. And again, we had some clearing up here over the northeast interior, with some areas reaching into the 70s this afternoon. Same thing here over the northwest. In between, narrow band of some light showers through there. Areas of fog this morning along the Arctic coast gave way to just low clouds with the ceilings under 1,000 feet. IFR up there along the coastline, and then higher pressure here as this trough weakened and moved inland. Broke the skies out to sunshine there, mostly in the southern areas there where it was warmer. More clouds in the north, but still dry this afternoon anyway over the northern Panhandle areas. And then a little bit of gusty wind conditions here across Bristol Bay, mostly in the 15 to 30 mile per hour range there. And then it cuts off there at Cape Newenham, much lighter winds on up to the north. We'll see tonight as that low center pulls eastward. These westerly winds here are going to become more northwesterly. too northerly there from the Pribilofs, and then northwest winds, pretty gusty. Gale warnings out tonight for the eastern Aleutians and portion of the Bering Sea there, with rainfall amounts mostly over the Bering Sea. Showers to the south. The trough will spread some rain up toward Kodiak Island tonight, keeping it on the wet side there. Areas of rain or showers over Bristol Bay, and this frontal system lifting northward. Rain, Cook Inlet, south central Alaska, especially this evening, and then as that pulls northward, become a little more intermittent, lighter, but still rather continuous along the North Gulf Coast. It should possibly taper off over Cook Inlet, but still showers over the Kenai Peninsula. Heavier rainfall amounts there on the west side of the inlet, and then pretty dry back out here to the west. Also to the north, just mostly cloudy skies. This trough still continuing to kick off a few showers there along the Brooks Range area back down to possibly the northern Koyukuk Valley, and then this front nudging eastward there will spread rainfall chances in from Port Alexander northward to Juneau, and of course back to the west. Flat out rain there for Yakutat, and again, as I mentioned, still looks pretty wet even later tonight there along the North Gulf Coast. Out to the west, higher pressure out there for much lighter winds and just clouds over the Bering Sea. Lighter winds up to the Bering Strait area. Low clouds and fog, especially on the central eastern Arctic coastline. And for tomorrow, not a lot of change, maybe a few showers up that way, but winds, fog conditions about the same as what you saw today. Could be some isolated thunderstorms tomorrow midday on into the afternoon here along that trough axis over the interior, with a few widely scattered showers off to the west, also over the 40-mile country, and then more moisture continues to spread northward here, so it's periods of rain for the North Gulf Coast, south central Alaska as well, on down to Kodiak Island. Getting a little more showery there west of the mountains on out toward Kuskokwim Bay and Bethel, and near the Yukon Delta. Could be some sunshine actually over the Delta there. Scattered showers the Seward Peninsula, mostly cloudy skies, with areas of possible sunshine up there in the north on the north slope, and especially back here with that offshore flow from about Wainwright or Point Lay all the way down to Kivalina, maybe Kotzebue. Dry definitely, but maybe not quite as warm as today. Otherwise, the weakening front kind of stalls out, edges its way eastward here for the Panhandle. So it looks pretty cloudy and wet there across the southeast coast, both for tomorrow and Sunday. As that pushes off, another one will develop and move in and take its place. But the main low center just tracking up to east of Kodiak Island. The heavier rainfall amounts will occur over the northern areas. There'll be more showery down to the south. And again, more rain. A couple of wet days coming up again from the North Gulf Coast into south central Alaska. Maybe a little more showery here for the areas from Cook Inlet back out to the west here. But the showers will be quite numerous over the southwest interior, with embedded thunderstorms and a little more thunderstorm activity pretty likely here over the central interior on up to the northeast there toward the border, especially in the afternoon hours. Quite a bit drier air back to the north and northwest. So look for some sunny breaks showing up there over the Brooks Range, maybe the north slope, but more likely here from the Noatak Valley across the Seward Peninsula. Maybe the Yukon Delta. Still some gusty winds going on, but not quite as strong. Probably will lose, or you will lose the gales here. And it'll be more of a small craft advisory type wind there for the eastern Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula, and lighter winds up along the coastline there. The Bering Sea still light winds with no big storms in sight, at least through the weekend here. This one just kind of skipping off to the southeast with a little bit of rain. Probably missing even AKwx at least through Sunday afternoon. Temperatures across the Panhandle today, upper 50s to lower 70s. 57 at Sitka, contrast that with 72 over at Stewart. Metlakatla had 70. State Capital 58, 60 in Yakutat, 50s North Gulf Coast, Kenai Peninsula, Susitna Valley up into the lower 60s. Some cases the mid 60s, but mostly in the 60 to 65 degree range up there. Otherwise 50s to the south, 57 Kodiak, 58 at McCarthy. Northway 64, same thing at Tok, and 68 at Fairbanks, 61 over at Tanana. McGrath checked in with 64, and 74, that was at Chalkyitsik there, 68 for Yukon, lower 60s there at the Brooks Range, and then mid to upper 50s for the North Slope and 40s along the Arctic coast. Cooler areas, Kaktovik at 39 and Barrow at 40. Otherwise, with those easterly winds pushing the clouds out to the west, sunshine 58 up there at Point Lay, and mid to upper 60s here over the northwest. Let's see, that's a place called Kelly, reached 70, and I think 70, 71 also at Kotzebue this afternoon. Otherwise, 60s there at Nome and Koyuk, 58 at Wales, 52 there at Savunga, and 60s here across the southwest. Bethel up to 66, 61 at Makoriak. Mid-50s for the Pribilofs, lower to mid-50s here out over the Aleutians, and the Alaska Peninsula, King Salmon, 63. For the lows tonight, mid-upper 50s for the southeast coast, otherwise 40s and 50s over the remainder of interior Alaska, lower 50s the Aleutians, Bering Sea, 30s up over the North Slope and the Arctic coast. Highs for tomorrow, 65 to 70 here in the west, warming to the 70 to 75 degree range there from the Tanana Valley. Again, up over the upper Yukon, 60s south of the mountains with 50s along the coast, upper 50s to lower 60s for the Panhandle. So going to lose those warmer temperatures down to the south there with the increase as that weakening front moves in with the precipitation and more clouds. IFR start the day with here over the northern Panhandle, still back over to about just east of Cape Yakataga, marginal VFR into Prince William Sound. IFR, Resurrection Bay, Cairns Head roughly down along the east side of Kodiak Island, across the Alaska Peninsula, marginal VFR over the remainder of the Bering Sea. The VFR here along the coast, across all of the interior, IFR due to either the low clouds or fog or both up there on the Arctic coast, and then more IFR spreading into the western Aleutians. And for Anaktuvik, VFR for the passes there, VFR for Adigan as well. Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR. Rainy, marginal. Windy, VFR. And for Isabel, VFR conditions. Mentasta, VFR. Tanita, VFR. And Portage, IFR. Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR. Looks like that'll be deteriorating throughout the afternoon to possibly IFR. And for the freezing levels, 8,000 feet here across the eastern central Bering Sea, nudging eastward there across Kodiak Island, and then up to about 10,000 feet, give or take, there over the southeast coast, and also probably 8,000 to 9,000 feet over the eastern interior, and a little warmer out there over the central Aleutians. Icing tomorrow above about 8,000 feet of the light rime variety, very isolated, moderate, possible but not likely here. That front dragging across the southeast coast, more moisture coming in with a main low center there. So from Kodiak Island up across the southwest interior and also across the Susitna Valley right up to the Alaska Range areas. None expected to the north, none expected out to the west as well. And for the jet stream, high pressure out here to the west, northwesterlies at about 70 knots, sailing across the western Aleutians, dropping to the south, really weakening as the flow diverges right through here. One branch only at about 50 knots from the south, continuing to feed that moisture right up to the North Gulf Coast and across southern Alaska. Northerlies at about 40 knots out over the central Bering. And for 9,000 feet, low now southwest of the Trinity Islands, southeasterlies or south-southeasterlies 20 to 25 knots up toward the North Gulf Coast. Lighter, more easterly to northeasterly, but just 10 to 15 over the interior. And 30 knots there along the Panhandle, lighter inland, and 45 knots, actually 25 to 30 to 45 knots there, sweeping around the western side of this low center across the eastern Aleutians, western Alaska Peninsula, drop back to 10 knots out toward Shemya. Same pattern at 3,000 feet as we saw at 9,000 feet. Pretty lighter winds though, 15 to 20 there along the southeast coast, and southeasterlies at about 20 here coming in across the Barren Islands, maybe into Prince William Sound. Interior variable to east, 5 to 15 knots all the way up to the Arctic coast. Northwesterlies 35 to 40 knots there from the Pribilofs down across the eastern Aleutians. Lighter winds under high pressure out west. And for turbulence, none for the Panhandle, none for most of the interior. Really, it's only where we have those northwest winds, so mechanical type stuff here, the Alaska Peninsula back out across the eastern Aleutians. Moderate, especially for smaller aircraft. They're below about 5,000 feet, lighter turbulence all the way up to St. Lawrence Island. And after the break, hangar flying, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
Good evening, I'm Harry Keeling, and on behalf of Alaska Public Media and the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation, welcome to Hangar Flying. Our guest this evening is Bart Stone, who's been on our program before and is well known in Alaskan aviation circles. Bart's been flying in Alaska for over 50 years and has amassed over 30,000 hours. He's got an extraordinary amount of experience flying both fixed wing and helicopters. Bart's worked for Alaska Helicopters, CR Motive, and before his retirement last year, worked for the Office of Aviation Services, or OAS, for 22 years. Bart's been very active in Civil Air Patrol, and he currently flies part-time for Rusts. I've had the pleasure of flying with Bart in a number of different aircraft, and I can tell you that I've learned an awful lot from that opportunity. Bart, welcome back.
Good to be here.
So one of the reasons I wanted to have you on tonight, we are just starting hunting season. And as you and I have talked before, August is always a terrible month for accidents. And it seems like we revisit every August, we revisit the topic and try and come up with some ideas that maybe will prevent that next accident. So appreciate you being on the program, and let's just start with your general philosophy about flying safety and off-airport ops.
Well, you know, what we see in August a lot is that the people that haven't been current all year, now they're suddenly going to go hunting with their airplane, and they're not current in the aircraft, much less current on landing on small areas and stuff like that. So there's a vast opportunity to use established runways that are marked for distances and check your performance standards and see how well you're doing with the aircraft before they step off into the brush and do some bush flying where they're going to be exposing themselves to, let's say, less than ideal conditions.
So let's talk a little bit about, because I know certainly when you were with OAS, you did a lot of training and evaluating of people who are doing off-airport work. Talk about the kind of the criteria and the approach that you use to determine when a person reached that level of proficiency that was required.
Well, it's nice to have these marked runways like they've got at Palmer and in Fairbanks and Nenana now, but what a person really needs to know is, and demonstrate to me safely, is that can they put either the right wheel or the left wheel. Let's say they're in a 185 or something like that, where they don't know where the right wheel is because it's over on the side and they can't see it. But if you mark out a 3-foot by 50-foot box with some surveyor's flagging, some tape, something like that, so you can see that box clearly. So you practice landing with either gear in that box. Once you've landed, stop, get out, and walk back and see where you actually landed in that box to verify to yourself that you did land in that box, that 3 feet by 50 foot. And if you can do it 10 times out of 10, you're probably ready to go to the bush, because if you consider a 50-foot box, 50 feet in length, now we're talking about a 400 or 500-foot strip. You know, that's eating up quite a bit of the distance right there if they don't hit it right on time every time. And that's what they've got to, should demonstrate to themselves, that they can do that over and over and over with either gear leg. So if they're landing on a small, narrow strip in on a ridge or something like that, they've got to know right where each wheel is at all times.
So you've mentioned this to me a couple of times before, but I think you mentioned that your experience was a lot of times you go up with someone and they say, oh yeah, I was right in the box, and you'd stop and you'd walk back there and find out something different.
You'd walk back, and if you don't walk back and look at your tracks, and of course it's good to walk anyway, stop where you're at, walk back, throw sticks out, throw big rocks out of where you just landed. Look where you just landed, because you can usually tell, because the tire will turn up rocks. So you can sit there and you can say, oh, geez, I thought it was right there, but in fact, maybe you weren't right there. And if you're not there, the thing is, we always say, you know, don't land short and don't land too long. You know, the FAA standards of landing, for commercial standards of landing within 200 feet and beyond of your landing spot, that's a pretty wide margin. If you think about a bush operation of 200 feet, it's not acceptable at all. It's got to be somewhere down to 50 or even down to 20 feet in length.
So I want to get you back on next time and talk about some more techniques and things like that. But I think what I heard you say today, which is something we all know, is if you're going to go out and do these kind of things, make sure that you're proficient in current, and if you need to, get an instructor who knows how to do these things in the airplane with you, and practice, because if you go out there cold, it's going to be a bad ending.
The last thing you want to do is just get your hunting partners or buddies and load them up in the airplane and go just really cold. You're not prepared at all. You're just going on the trip, you know, and so that's what it's a hard decision to go out and make the time, but that's what you have to do, is make the time to go get proficient before you take your buddies.
Great. Thanks, Bart, for being on the program tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you were listening to some of the ideas that Bart has. He's done this a long time, and we want to try to make August a little safer. We can get Bart on next time and talk about some more techniques for airport operations. So tune in then, and in the meantime, fly safe.
Welcome back. Well, tomorrow a front slowly approaching the coastal areas there, holding together enough to keep small craft advisories in the forecast here for South 25 there on the southern coast and southeast at the same speed up to the north. Clarence Strait, southeast 25 knots, 5-foot seas, dropping back to 20 knots there for Stevens Passage, and south for northern Lynn Canal. Those pick up to 25 knots Sunday afternoon up that way. Same thing for Stevens Passage, small craft advisories there, but dropping off to 20 for Clarence Strait. And holding on to about the same pattern here, southeast winds or south to southeast, 25 knots all along the coastline, seas roughly about 8 to 9 feet the entire stretch of the way also. For the North Gulf Coast tomorrow, southeast 25 in the vicinity of Middleton Island there at 8-foot seas. Otherwise here back across the Barrens, easterlies at 20. East 15, Prince William Sound. Cook Inlet, northeast 15 to 20 knots, strongest south of the Forelands. And those pick up to 25 knots more easterly there in Kamishak Bay. Otherwise, Kodiak Island, lighter winds, just 15 knots in those marine zones. Shelikof Strait on Sunday, north, give or take there at about 15. Pretty light here along the east side of Kodiak Island. Northeast 15 for the Barren Islands, up into Kamishak Bay. North to northeast 10 to 15 for Cook Inlet. Southeast 20 for the North Gulf Coast. East 15, really not much change there, Prince William Sound. And easterlies also at 15 there for the western coast. And Bristol Bay tomorrow, northeast at 20, and then north 30, turning northwest at about 30 knots there. 11 to 13-foot seas for the peninsula. Low center right in this area, so southeasterlies at 20 knots there up towards Sitkinak. And then for Sunday, north 15 there in Bristol Bay. Still holding on to small craft advisories for the Alaska Peninsula, but 25 knots instead of 30, and still winds pretty light from Castle Cape on up to Sitkinak. And then for the Aleutians, gales tonight and tomorrow for the eastern Aleutians here. 35 knots out of the northwest, dropping back to 25 knots tomorrow afternoon for the central Aleutians, and then really lightening up here under higher pressure out to the west. And for Sunday, still light winds 10 to 15 here for the western Aleutians. Lighter now south to southwest for Adak and Atka at about 15 knots, and then northwesterlies continue, but gradually diminishing. Still small craft advisories there for Unalaska Island. And for the southwest coast, winds tomorrow look northerly, 25 knots. Small craft advisories continue all the way up to St. Lawrence Island. Northwest 30 for the Pribilofs, northwest 20 there for St. Matthew Island. And then those drop down to 20 knots for the Pribilofs on Sunday, down to 15 up here, St. Matthew Island, and even lighter just to the west. To the east, those pick up a little bit, but down under small crafts with northwest 20 for the coast. Holding on to those 25-knot northerlies there for St. Lawrence Island through Sunday. Eastern Arctic coast tomorrow, east 15 to 20 knots. For Saturday there, 15 knots for the central coast, even the west side. Northerlies from Cape Beaufort pick up to 25 knots there on down toward the Bering Strait. And for Sunday, hold on to those 25-knot northerlies again with 5-foot seas, 15 knots out of the north there from Cape Thompson all the way up until you turn easterly here and drop off to 10 knots for the eastern coast, and more or less that same wind pattern all the way eastward to Demarcation Point. Taking a look at tonight's forecast again, front currently pushing northward here with the rainfall that's been going on. Prince William Sound, south central Alaska, that lifts north, should taper off, at least the rainfall rate should come down a little bit, maybe become more showery. This will nudge its way eastward, bringing an increasing chance of rain again from about Port Alexander up to the north. Rain still moderate at times for Yakutat. Wet conditions for Kodiak as this low center tracks eastward there to the peninsula, and then those gale force winds there from the Pribilofs on down across eastern Aleutians, diminishing back to the west. And that low pulls eastward slowly, so that counterclockwise circulation will continue to pump clouds and moisture to Kodiak Island along the North Gulf Coast, and that weakening front there along the Panhandle, cloudy, occasionally wet, or periods of light rain there for the southeast coast, heaviest in the north. Scattered thunderstorms possible there over the interior along that trough with lighter conditions back to the west.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.